Hi, my name is Mandy Smith, and I am here today interviewing my Meemaw, world-renowned brownie maker. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Meemaw Gerhardt, Mandy's Meemaw, and I will do the best to answer these questions.
You'll do great, Meemaw. And we are in Locust Grove, Virginia, and this is November 26th, 2016. So, let's get started. Who is your favorite grandchild? I'm just kidding.
You are, of course.
Correct. Off to a great start. Okay, Meemaw, so tell me about some of the good or bad memories you have listening to the radio when you were young.
Okay, when I was very young, and I have to give away my age, but you already know I'm not 26, so I would say in the late 1940s, the radio was pretty important because there really wasn't much else for people to listen to, or TV didn't come about until, I'm not sure if it was probably somewhere in the late 40s, but not everybody had a television. It took a while. And some of the bad memories of TV at that time was mostly they listened to, or they watched, they listened to things like wrestling and stuff like that, and then it came on TV and they watched it. They watched wrestling and they watched roller derbies where they knocked people down. And I was never really excited about watching that. It wasn't until a little later when the things like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and Westerns, we all wore cowboy hats and guns around our hips and had caps in our guns and went around shooting everything, you know, because there's Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, of course. And those were the kind of things we got for Christmas because of those shows. And then they had variety shows, and the variety shows were good. There was Red Skelton, and there was the Ed Sullivan Show, and lots of others where you could see all the stars and all the singers.
Yeah.
And they had the hit parade where all the top music was played. But my favorite things on the radio when I was little was the music.
Yeah.
I got interested in listening to music, and then we had the jukeboxes, and you could listen to those same songs on the jukebox, put a little coin in and pick out the songs you wanted, and that was great fun.
Sounds fun. You kind of already said this, but what kind of programs did you listen to? You said you liked music mostly on the radio.
On the radio?
Yeah.
We listened to some shows that were like Burns and Allen. It was a couple. He and his wife did a comedy routine, basically. It was a little skit done on the radio, and she was always acted like she wasn't that smart, but you know. And then he was the smart one, and it was very funny. And then when TV came about, they went on television too, and they were very famous.
Oh, that must have been an interesting transition. Now we're gonna switch over to TV. That's a good segue. What was your first memory of colored TV?
That was Walt Disney World, and it came on that first night that it was going to be color, and they showed Beauty and the Beast, the beginning of it, and it was all in black and white, and then all of a sudden the garden scene came up with the beautiful roses, and they all turned red, and it like went into color a little bit at a time, and then the whole thing was just beautiful color, and we were just all sitting there with our mouths open looking at it, because it just made such a huge difference, because everything was in black and white before that.
Right. So most of your childhood it was black and white?
Oh yes, all of the westerns and all the other shows too. They were all black and white.
Wow.
And the TV was like a little box, you know. It was a piece of furniture, like with just a little screen, probably about this big, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what we watched. But it was great to us because that's, you know, we'd never had TV before
Yeah.
it ever came out.
Yeah. So you weren't complaining.
No.
How did TV change your home life? How was it a part of family time?
In the evenings, we would sit down together and watch the variety shows. And,
Yeah.
And in fact, my mother used certain shows as punishment. If I did something wrong, then I got that show taken away. I remember there were certain ones like Sid Caesar and nights that I liked to watch. And if I did something wrong, then I didn't get to watch that show that night.
Oh.
But during the day, the TV was mostly I could go on there and stay busy watching
Yeah.
westerns and the kids shows because
Right.
there weren't a lot of other shows on TV. You know, kids could watch TV and there was no vulgarity or
Right.
there was nothing on there that was bad that you couldn't leave your child to watch.
Right.
Not like today.
It's very different today then.
And very few channels too.
Okay. Do you remember any commercials in particular about the presidential election or anything in particular stand out?
No, I don't remember any about elections. The kind of commercials that we had when I was a kid were like gas commercials, especially there was, you know, all of the gas companies and also automobiles. I
Okay.
remember Dinah Shore, she had a variety show and she would sing, you see the USA in your Chevrolet. That was her theme song, you know.
Sounds sketchy.
So they did a lot of advertising for things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It was always products.
So that's different from today too then.
No, they still have commercials about those things, but they're much more tuned into today, you know.
Right.
Back then, music was a big part of everything, I think.
Right.
So they had catchy little tunes.
Okay.
The commercials were much more entertaining back then, I think, than most of them are now.
Do you miss them a little? Okay. Well, what was the earliest presidential election you can remember, since we got talking about politics a little
The
bit?
first one was when Adlai Stevenson was running because my mom and dad were on opposing sides for that election and they talked about it a lot.
Yeah, I bet that created some interesting conversation.
Yes, and they didn't change their minds either. They stuck to their opinions.
Okay, so what was the first presidential election that you voted in?
As soon as I turned 18, I don't remember exactly who was
Who it
running
was.
then, but yes, I started voting from the beginning.
Right from the beginning. Okay. Can
Or
you?
It might have been 21 then. I don't really remember. But
Right.
whatever. When I was signed up to vote, I started voting.
You started voting.
And
right
I've
away.
always gone and started voting.
You started voting.
And
right
I've
away.
always gone and voted.
Good. Good. Can you talk about an election that you remember being involved in, like not just voting, but one that stands out in your mind?
Not presidential elections. No,
Okay.
I did participate in a local election one
Oh,
time and
okay.
helping the sheriff get elected. I
Oh, okay.
campaigned for him
Oh,
and went
I
to
didn't
the
know that.
polls and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, but not in a presidential.
Okay. Okay. And what particular news sources did people turn to get their information about the elections when you were growing up?
In the beginning, mostly the newspaper, and then when you went to the movies, there were they call them trailers now, I guess. But,
Yeah.
there were video clips, newsreels they called them,
Okay.
and they would put them on before the show started.
Okay.
instead of seeing previews of movies, you would see these newsreels. And
Wow.
of course, the wars were going on then, and they
Yeah.
would put a lot of the war stuff, what was happening
Right.
around around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And meanwhile, what type of new technology do you use?
A lot.
A lot.
I started out with just a computer, and that's what I used for years and years. And then after lots of begging from my children and my grandchildren, I upped it to, I got a Kindle and read my books on a Kindle, and then I went to a fancy cell phone. I had a flip phone before that, and I'm still learning because I managed to mess it up about once a week. Unfortunately, I have grandchildren that can help me fix it.
I'm not much help. I mess up my own.
But the email and texting, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love it when they change my text. Autocorrect.
It messes with you. So, has modern media like cell phones and Facebook and news stations, have they changed how you think about the presidential election?
They certainly give you can get a lot more information than you did in the past. But a lot of it is biased. It never used to be that way.
Yeah.
And now, of course, there's so many channels and so many different news programs. And you kind of have to read a lot and listen a lot.
Yeah.
And make your own decisions as to what you think is the correct thing. Because they definitely do try to sway you to their way of thinking.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed the same thing. So do you think your experiences with media have differed from, say, in the 1980s to your experience now?
Yes. Yes. In the 1980s, I watched different channels than I do now for the news I was getting. Because it just seems that over time it has changed tremendously.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that I don't agree with on a lot of the channels.
Right.
But that's all you can do is, like I say, you have to listen and read. You can find out a lot from the right places and the right people. But it's important, no matter what, to get out and vote, because I think if you don't vote, you shouldn't be complaining.
That's true. Yeah. I think that's how a lot of people feel. And lastly, I just wanted to know, what's your favorite and least favorite thing about new media? You know, things have changed a lot over the years. Some for the good, some for the bad. What do you think?
Well, having more places to go to get information is good, because then the more you have to choose from, the better off you are, because if you only had one or two, like we used to have, basically there wasn't a lot of channels you could go to for news.
Right.
And so it's probably better to have more.
Right.
But I just think that you still end up having to make up your own mind.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, thank you, Mima. You did a great job, and we appreciate your input.
You're welcome.
Bye.